A federal investigation in the United States have intensified an investigation into a large-scale fraud network that is tied to federal aid funds in Minnesota and the property transaction abroad. The Federal Bureau of Investigation (FBI), the Internal Revenue Service Criminal Investigation Division, and the U.S. Postal Inspection Service are working together to trace millions of dollars stolen from multiple federal programs including child nutrition, housing support, autism service, and the pandemic relief initiative known for Feeding Our Future. The agencies say the funds were misused and moved through a complex scheme involving shell companies and sham non-profits. The U.S. federal authorities say this investigation uncovered evidence of fraud that they described as an industrial in scale, targeting taxpayers' funds intended to support vulnerable children and families. The inquiry had focused on multiple organizations and individuals accused of submitting false claims for reimbursement from the program designed to provide meal and support services. The FBI role in the probe has been part of the broader efforts to identify the misuse of federal dollars directed to nutrition and welfare individuals. The federal officers disclosed that they have dismantled fraud network connected to the Feeding Our Nation or Feeding the Future program. According to the statement from investigators, this scheme involved sham vendors and shell companies that falsely claim federal reimbursement. As part of the investigation, the prosecutor have charged dozens of individuals with crime, including wired fraud, money laundering, and conspiracy. Record shows that more than 240 million US dollars was fraudulently obtained through false claim in Feeding Our Future scheme. The U.S. Attorney Office in Minnesota reported that indictments have been issued against many defendants associated with the fraud network. Across multiple findings, prosecutors outlined that the scheme involved numerous entities claiming to provide meals to thousands of children, but instead submitted inflated or fraudulent documentation to obtain federal funds. The proceedings in the U.S. federal court indicate that the law reinforcement aims to hold those involved accountable under federal law. Federal authorities also revealed that a significant share of the misappropriated funds was funneled abroad, including to a real estate investment in Kenya. Prosecutors and investigators have linked portion of stolen aid money to a property purchase and related transactions in Nairobi, Kenya. The capitals in Kenya and in Mandera County near the border with Somalia and Ethiopia. These connections have drawn attention to international component on the fraud network. In one detailed federal indictment, a Kenyan national was charged in Minnesota with conspiracy to commit international money laundering for his role in the Feeding Our Future fraud scheme. Court document is that case alleged that the individual helped his brother launder millions of dollars in fraud process and send those funds abroad. Portion of the proceeds were reportedly invested in Kenya's real estate through a corporate entities including property in Nairobi South Sea neighborhood and land in Mandera town. The U.S. Department of Justice also identified that the fraud network utilized overseas transactions to conceal the movement of funds. These transactions involve bulk cash smuggling and investment in local real estate markets outside the United States. The investigation includes these details in federal finding as part of the efforts to trace the flow of money and support criminal charges against the defenders. The FBI says it works on the case in ongoing with federal agents following leads to locate additional assets and recover funds. Authority reported that they have recovered approximately 60 million US dollars to 70 million US dollars in cash and property connected to the fraud investigation. These recoveries include seizing assets, real estate, and other holdings intended to compensate for the misuse of federal aid monies. In addition to the property in Kenya, court recorded a federal announcement show that fraud process was used to purchase vehicles, luxury goods, and real estate across the United States, including homes and commercial property. Federal prosecutors have stated that some defendants involved in the scheme used the fraudulently obtained funds to finance a personal lifestyle instead of delivering service to vulnerable children as intended. The FBI and the federal partners have announced that more than 70 individuals have faced charges in connection with the Feeding Our Future fraud cases. Convictions have been obtained in the dozens of cases, with charges ranging from conspiracy to wire fraud and money laundering. Federal prosecutors outlined that some defendants attempted to influence judicial proceedings, including a case where someone sought to bribe a juror during the trials. The expanded investigation and increased federal resources deployed to Minnesota reflect a concerted effort to break up networks that are allegedly diverted aid funds. Federal officials in the statement highlight the toll that the fraud scheme have taken on government programs and stressed efforts to follow the money whenever it goes, including across international bodies. Federal authorities said they are also working with immigration officers to refer individuals implicated in the case for potential denaturalization or deportation proceedings, depending on the nature of the charges and individuals' legal status. These actions are part of the broader prosecution strategy related to fraud and related crime in the United States. The allegation linking Kenyan real estate and investments to Minnesota fraud investigation have not only received a public response from Kenyan's authority. However, the international dimension of the investigation highlight connection between the U.S. federal aid program and foreign property transaction that federal investigators are pursuing as part of their ongoing work.